Welcome to this tutorial. My name is Ian and I will be taking you through the tutorial. So far we've been on quite a journey with ChatGPT. We've seen that it can do a lot of amazing things for our data analysis. In this tutorial, I want to take you through a set of calculations that I really enjoy being able to do. And those calculations, sometimes depending on which system you're using, aren't always easy to do. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to create a table and we're going to have our sales by year and month. Now this is a standard management report that you ought to often put together in your business. Now often what you want to know from that year and month is what is my percentage of the sales? So maybe each month, what was the percentage of each month's sales? Then once we've got that, we might want to know what was the difference from the previous month. So how much did each month differ? Maybe we want to know what the percentage difference was from the previous month as well. You might want to know what our running total is. What is our year-to-date figure? And also, what is the ranking of each of our months? So you might want to know which month was highest or which month was lowest. So this is a set of calculations that I always enjoy doing to data. So we're going to see how ChatGPT actually handles this. Now please remember that we do the paid plan to be able to do these calculations. Also, please make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. Keep up to date with all that latest content. But let's jump into the tutorial. I will see you there. Welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial, we're going to be looking at some more advanced calculations that you can do with ChatGPT. So we're going to be looking at things such as calculating percentages and difference from calculations, running totals, and rankings. Okay, so we're going to continue with our sales data that we've been using in our other tutorials. So if you're not familiar with the sales data, please go back to some of the previous tutorials, have a look at that. But let's start by loading this up in ChatGPT, and I'm going to say load the file. And I'm going to get it to just list the fields. We'll start with our standard way of loading it up into ChatGPT. Okay, so there we go. We're getting some of the fields now being listed. And what I'm going to be looking at as my base calculation for this is we're going to look at doing a report where we're going to look at our sales by our year and month. And we're going to do it for the year 2020. So we've got an order date. It's got all the dates of our transactions in there. We've got our sales field. So we're going to be using those. So we're just going to say create a table. And we're going to say display the sales by month for the year 2020. I'm going to add a little bit of additional information. So I'm going to tell it to add a total and to format the sales with 1,000. I'm going to tell it to use 1,000 separator, and we're going to use no decimal places. Okay, so we're going to submit that. Okay, great. So I'm getting my table, I'm getting my months, I'm getting all my sales values coming through for each month. Now, one of the first calculations I might want to do on this is I might want to understand what is the percentage for each month versus the total. So we've got our total over here. How much is that as a percentage of that? So we're going to tell it we're going to add a new calculation. I'm going to tell it to add a new calculation to the table. We're then going to tell it what the calculation is. So we're going to say calculate the percentage of sales for each month. Now, as I mentioned previously on a lot of the tutorials, you could definitely phrase this differently. You could have definitely a different approach to this. It's just one that I found that kind of works consistently when I'm looking to add new calculations, is to tell it first I'm adding the new calculation, then what the calculation is. But as I say, please experiment with your own options here. You may find much quicker and easier ways of doing this. Okay, so there we go. Now, hopefully we are going to get our percentage of sales, and that looks like it is calculated that correctly. So moving on, the next one we're going to look at is if we look at each of the months and the figures that we've got the each month's sales. A common calculation in management reports is to be able to say what is the difference from the previous month. So if we were looking here now, what is the difference between February and January? What is the difference between March and February? So each month we want to know what was the difference from the previous month. So again, I'm going to tell it that we're going to add a calculation to the table, and I'm going to tell it to calculate the difference from the previous month. And again, we'll just submit that. And there we go. We're now getting our updated table. And as you can see, we are getting the difference from previous month. In the first month, there should be no difference, and there isn't a difference, so that's good news. And then you can see that the difference between January and February is actually a minus figure, which looks about correct. So it looks like the calculation has been correctly done. Okay, so moving on, the next calculation that I want to look at is often you might want to know what is this figure as a percentage. So it gives you an understanding of how big or small the percentage move is from the difference from the previous month. So again, we're going to use the same strategy. I'm going to tell it we're going to add a calculation to the table. And in this case, we're going to say calculate the percentage difference from the previous month. Again, let's submit that. Okay, so again, we're getting our updated table. It looks like it's now adding a new column for percentage difference, which is good news. And let's see if we're going to get a value in there. And we do. And it's a minus value, which is correct because obviously the difference from the previous month was a minus value. So there we go. It looks like the calculation has been done correctly. So the next calculation I want to look at is how do we get a running total? Now, often when you're looking at your figures for a year, you may want to go to June, for example, and say, well, what is my year-to-date figure at June? So what is the cumulative values or the cumulative calculation for all these sales values up until June? So running total can really help us be able to get that. So let's say again, we're going to add a calculation to the table. And we're going to tell it that we are going to calculate the running total. And as you can see here, I'm not putting in that it must calculate the running total for the sales column. I'm just saying calculate the running total. So this just really picks up the fact that it's meant to use the sales value. So it is looking and it is doing some interpreting. However, interestingly, we do have an error on this one. Now, what has been really interesting watching how ChatGPT has evolved is to see how it actually takes the error analyzing. So you'll see that it's now saying that there's a formatting issue. So it's going to correct this and then it's going to move on with the calculation. So it looks like it's now corrected that and it's now moved on and it's added the running total into the calculations. Obviously, we're going to wait to see the figures, but that looks pretty good. It looks correct in terms of adding those figures together. So I think that's one thing that is quite amazing to watch here is the way that it can often error correct itself. It knows what it's done or isn't working correctly to get the result that it's looking for. And here we got the actual running total correctly here. And there we go. We've now got the running total that has been put in there. However, as you can sort of see that the running total, the actual total itself, is not actually correct. This is the correct total at December, would equal the total of the sales. But here it's actually added those two figures together. So it's nearly got it correct. We could probably ask it to actually correct itself. In previous examples, I've actually seen that the system does pick up there's an error here and has actually corrected it itself. But we're going to accept that for now. The main thing that I want to show you in the tutorial is the fact that we can easily do these calculations just through these very easy statements that we're putting in. The next one we're going to look at is a percentage running total. So the idea behind that is if we again went to June, which is about halfway through the year, are 50% of the sales at June or have we got less than 50%? So it's an interesting way of being able to see what the cumulative running total percentage is. So again, we're going to use the same strategy. We're going to tell it to add a calculation to the table. And we're going to tell it to calculate the percentage running total this time. And again, let's submit that. Okay, so again, it's building our table for us. And we've got a column for the percentage running total. And let's hopefully see that it gets this correct. Oh, it looks like it. Straight away, those two values together would probably be quite accurate. So you can see by June, we've got 47% of the total sales. So pretty close to 50% of the year's sales by June. Okay, so there we go. It's added it. And as you can see, some of these totals are a little bit meaningless. It might be better just actually to have no result in the totals, because actually at December, we've actually got the correct figures that we were looking for. So here we've got the total of the running total, and we've got 100% there as well. Okay, now the last calculation I'm going to be looking at is the ability to rank your sales. Now, if we look at these months are in chronological order. We can't change the sort order to say which month has the highest sales or which month has the fourth highest sales or the bottom sales. So a ranking really can help us pick out which month has the highest sales. So again, let's go back to this, and I'm going to just say that we're going to add calculation to the table. And in this case, we're going to say we're going to calculate the ranking of sales, and highest sales gets ranking number one. So we're going to just tell it that the highest value should get the highest ranking here in terms of getting the ranking number one. Again, let's give that to ChatGPT to interpret. Okay, so again, we've got our table being put together, and we do have a column for sales rank. And it tells us January is actually the 4th ranked month, February the 9th ranked. So it looks like it is correctly doing that at the moment. Although March being the 13th ranked doesn't really actually make sense, since we've only got 12 months. So that's a bit unfortunate. And I think that does kind of show that with ChatGPT, you still got to double check the values, even though it can be incredibly helpful in terms of the values. And it's actually showing us September as the highest month, which is probably correct. So there we go. We've got the rankings. And as I mentioned, it's unfortunate March got the 13th ranking. We'll probably have to look at this in a little bit more detail to figure out why it didn't get 12 rankings versus the fact of using 13. What went wrong, and what was the number that didn't quite work out. But the main thing that I wanted to show you in this tutorial is really using ChatGPT. It's allowing us to do incredibly powerful calculations just with simple statements, very, very easy to use. So we're going to conclude the tutorial, and I hope to see you in the next one.